Okay, let's get real for a second. Parenting kiddos with ADHD is exhausting. And some days just thinking about talking to a therapist feels impossible. That's why I love Talkspace. Here's the game changer. You can text or chat with a licensed therapist whenever you need. No waiting rooms, no awkward, hi. No forcing yourself to talk out loud when your nervous system is already shot. Just real support on your time in your space. If you're shy, anxious, overstimulated, or just flat out done speaking, this is life changing. You type, they respond, and suddenly support is literally in your pocket. And the practical mom part? Talkspace accepts most insurance. The average copay is around $15, and a lot of insured members pay $0. No insurance? Still covered. You can get $80 off your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. So if you've been thinking, I need help, but I can't even, this is your sign. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com and save $80 with code SPACE80. Less guilt, more support. That's the energy we're bringing into 2026. This week's episode of Chaos and Caffeine is one of those deep exhale conversations. We're talking about parenting the child you actually have, not the one the school system rewards, not the one you imagine before the diagnosis, the behavior charts, the have you tried comments, the child you have. And to have this conversation, I brought in Dr. Kristen Cook, physician, author, and someone who deeply understands how biology, temperament, trauma, environment, and neurodivergence all collide inside our kids' developing brains. She doesn't do shame, she doesn't do one-size-fits-all parenting advice, and she absolutely does not believe every child should be forced into the same mold. In this episode, we dig into what parenting the child you have actually means and why it can feel so damn hard at first. How to separate behavior from identity, why some kids need a completely different roadmap, and ADHD parenting strategies that work with your kid's brain instead of against it. If you are raising a child who feels intense, reactive, brilliant, complicated, or constantly misunderstood, this conversation will feel grounding in the absolute best way possible. Your child isn't broken, but the expectations might be. Let's welcome Dr. Cook to the mic. Dr. Cook, welcome to Chaos and Caffeine.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
I am very excited for this conversation because after researching you, you talk about some of the most important things that I think ADHD parents need to hear, and they don't always listen to me, so I'm hoping they'll listen to you.
Oh, well, thank you. That's very, very kind of you.
Before we jump into all of that, do you mind letting our listeners know a little bit about you?
Sure. So my name's Kristen Cook. I am a pediatrician with over 15 years of experience in a thriving medical practice. I also am the mom of two amazing, strong-willed kids who teach me about life every single day. And again, I'm just very, very happy to be here today.
I am excited to have you. So I guess I want to start with one thing that when I say it, parents are like ready to block me on social media, send nasty comments and DMs first. But it seems like the only way to parent our kids is by positive parenting. And when I say that, they like take it a dagger through the heart, like what I'm doing is wrong right now, and it's a me thing. So do you mind diving into a little bit about that and maybe why we take it so personally?
Yeah. So I have a slightly different approach. So I always encourage people to parent the child that they have, not the child that they want.
Mm.
And sometimes I get the same kind of response. What do you mean parent the child that I'm not parenting the child I want? Well, if you've ever forced your kid to play a sport they didn't like, you're not parenting the child you have. If you've ever forced your kids to eat broccoli, you're not parenting the child you have. And I say that with all the love in my heart. And so my approach really is to help people understand the child that they have, where they are at developmentally, taking in any counts of chronic medical conditions they might have and how to navigate those challenges, and really very, very much a child-centered approach.
Mm. See, I went to parent coaching myself because I was for sure trying to parent the kid that I thought I was getting from the
Yeah.
stork and not the one that was delivered.
Uh-huh.
And through the whole parent coaching, I think it was a couple of years. It took me a little bit longer than everybody else to get there.
Mhm.
I kept waiting on them to tell me how to fix him. And the whole thing was about changing what I was doing.
Absolutely. 100%. Very well said.
Yeah. And unfortunately, my kiddo can still remember not so calm mom,
Mhm.
but I'm thankful that now he has the calm mom, the one
Mhm.
that's trying to show up for the kiddo that he is.
Mhm.
And he actually will call me the calm mom or the chill mom now, which is amazing to
Oh,
hear. It is, it really is. And
yeah.
it was just a small shift in what I was doing.
Mhm. Yeah. Sometimes that's all it takes is just little shifts.
Yeah. Do you have a process for gently letting parents know what kid they have?
Yeah. So it really is kind of, most of the time people come with me with behavior concerns. My
Mm.
kid is having temper tantrums. My kid won't go on the potty. My kid keeps talking back to me. So I typically start with the behavior and help parents understand where that behavior is coming from. Because the great majority of the time, our kids are not misbehaving to be defiant or to be naughty. They're misbehaving because they are fighting biological battles every single day. I, especially when it comes to things like temper tantrums, I always encourage parents to view them as a signal of an overwhelmed brain.
Mm.
And if you've ever had a child with a temper tantrum, you know that trying to talk them out of it just makes the tantrum worse. You have to let them self-regulate, and then you can come back in with the teaching afterwards.
Yeah. I think the way it was very gently worded to me is a meltdown is a signal of an unmet need.
Hmm.
I would take behavior very personally.
Sure.
And once I flipped that, as he's not lashing out at me or anything like that, it's that he has a need that is not being met in some
Mhm.
way. Can I help? And that was a really powerful shift.
Yes, absolutely. Very much so.
So, in your practice, when you're diving into the child in front of you and not the one that we dreamed of or made up some fantasy about how
Mhm.
amazing this delivery might be,
Yeah.
is there a pattern that you see with ADHD parents that helps more than not?
Helping them to understand, as you said, this is not a child that is intentionally acting out. This is a child whose brain is wired differently, and different is not a bad thing.
Yeah,
But we have to, work with the way the brain is wired, not the way you want it to be wired.
yeah. I think that that was probably like the hardest
Yeah.
shift for me.
Yeah.
I was raised in a disciplinarian, authoritative household. And surprise, surprise, that did not work when we started
Yes.
parenting at
Yes.
all.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I have a lot of parents of, 2 and 3 year olds so concerned. Oh my gosh, my child must have ADHD.
Mm.
No, they have the attention span of a nanosecond. That's developmentally appropriate. So, helping parents kind of understand and set expectations for their child based on their age and their developmental abilities. And the same thing, too, for older kids with ADHD. We can't necessarily expect them to be focused 100% of the time, you
Yeah.
know?
Not to throw him under the bus, but my co-parent is for sure the just focus and try harder.
Mhm.
And I giggle because he actually also has ADHD. And I'd always just think like, how did that work out for you?
Yeah.
Just try harder, just focus, you can do
Right. Right.
it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, on your journey of starting to work with parents who like you said, might have some behavioral issues. Did you see any reflections in your own parenting, or did you guys kind of have it figured out before starting?
Oh no. Oh no, I had nothing figured out. So I always tell people the biggest mistake I made when I was pregnant is I did not learn anything about what it was going to be like to be a mom. I could tell you what size fruit my baby was when they were in my belly. I could tell you what kind of diaper rash cream I was going to buy, but I had no idea what it was like to actually raise a tiny human and provide for all their needs.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a huge shock. And the way I practice medicine has really, really evolved over the years based on the experiences that I have as a mom.
Any particular standouts there in the shifts that you've made?
Yeah. So we were on vacation once, and my son he was a toddler, overstimulated, hungry, tired. It's the perfect setup for the storm, right? And we were sitting at a restaurant, and he finally got his food. And I don't know what happened, but that food just threatened him immediately. He ripped his grilled cheese sandwich in half, flung it across the restaurant.
Oh,
One
no.
half of the grilled cheese sandwich hit another man in the face. And then my son fell on the floor and had the most epic, loud temper tantrum. It was so embarrassing. And it just really I was like, wow, how it was the very first time that I looked at my child's behavior and I was like, how did I maybe set up this situation? Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? It was
Yeah.
the kind of the first time that I said, maybe I'm part of the problem. Maybe I need to work on me.
Yeah. Ooh, that is so good because I feel like my entire parenting journey has been me reparenting myself
Yes.
for the ways that I show up. And for
Mhm.
him, we actually just had this really common conversation the other day about how parents typically parent from a place of fear, but kids think that we're fearful of them, but we're really fearful of what everybody else is thinking of us as parents. And it's like,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's also been a big shift too, is comparison is such a normal part of human nature, but it really is detrimental when we compare our parenting to other parents or when we compare our kids to other kids.
yeah, for sure. My kiddo is amazing in so many ways, but to think that he's going to sit down and be quiet for 7.5 hours a day, it's not happening.
No,
It's just not going
no.
to happen.
uh, and that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. So you have a book,
Mhm.
and I'm wondering if your strong-willed kiddos influenced the book.
100%. 100%. In fact, it was that temper tantrum that I just talked about that
Mm,
really sparked my desire to learn more about child development, behavioral strategies. It's an interesting thing. They don't teach you anything about parenting in medical school.
oh,
You know,
really?
no, and one of the things that I've noticed over the years is about even up to half of what I do each day at work is helping people parent
Mm,
rather than doing medicine,
yeah,
So yeah, my kids 100% inspired me to learn more, to grow, and to kind of share that knowledge in return.
yeah. You want to tell us a little bit about the book?
Sure. So it's called, I actually have a copy right here. It's called Parenting Redefined, a guide to understanding and nurturing your child's behavior to help them thrive. And it really goes step by step from infancy until late teenage years, how to understand your child's neurocognitive development, their social development, their emotional development, and how to nurture those things to help them become the best adult they can be.
Mm. I don't know why this question popped in my head. Maybe because I have ADHD, but I gotta know. A lot of parents, I have a kiddo that is clearly, I mean, typical hyperactive, impulsive boy. Like he is what the 80s definition of ADHD is.
Yeah.
So there was no mistake in that. But a lot of parents are like, is this ADHD or is this behavior? Is there
Right.
anywhere throughout your book that would show parents this is normal? This is what you would expect at this age. You
Yeah.
should be worried when it progresses into.
Hmm. Yeah. Especially in, the toddler preschooler sections, definitely. Because again, you can't expect a 2-year-old to sit still. They just don't do it. They're on the go all the time, and that's good for them. They need that. That does become problematic if the child is 12, though.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Anything out of the norm in those toddler early years that we need to be looking out for?
Oh, certainly. I'm a pediatrician. We're big on developmental milestones, and it's well known that autism spectrum disorder is becoming more prevalent. We don't exactly know why. It's not vaccines. But yeah, I mean, especially in my practice, I've been really kind of focusing more on those early childhood milestones. In fact, some of my patients probably think I'm ridiculous, but every healthy checkup between 4 and 9 months old, I am doing whatever it takes to get that baby to try to smile at me. Because we've noticed if children are not engaging in a social smile by about 9 months of age, that could potentially be a risk factor for autism spectrum disorder.
Mm. When I was pregnant, there was a commercial that played on the radio in Texas. If your baby isn't crying or laughing before 12 months, your baby may have autism. So I was like all over my kid,
Yeah.
like, is he crying? Unfortunately for us, we had the opposite problem and he never stopped
Oh,
crying. So there's
yes,
that.
that was my son. My son was a colicky baby. Yes, that is definitely a
Yeah.
challenge for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember those days. I was just telling my family the other day at a dinner that he was the kid where I would hold him and he would go to sleep and I would put him down. And as soon as he was by himself, he would shake himself awake. It was like, I'm never going to get anything done.
That was my son too. Absolutely. The kid hated sleep from the day he was born. He did not consistently sleep through the night till he was 5 years old. It was exhausting.
Oh no, I bet that
Yeah.
was. Oh
Yeah.
man. Phew. I guess because my kiddo gets his energy out all day, he's like wide open from 7 a.m. to
Uh-huh.
8 p.m. As soon as his head hits the
Mhm.
pillow, he is gone. The one plus side of 88, no, I'm just kidding.
Oh.
So what about, it seems to me like issues come up behaviorally or academically seem to thrive in that first couple of years of elementary
Mhm.
school. Everything that we thought we could handle at home is suddenly very problematic at school. Is
Yeah.
that what you
Oh,
see?
absolutely. Absolutely. And a lot of times teachers come kind of off as the bad guy, like, hey, I'm the one pointing out your child's behavior. But, they teachers are angels on earth. They really are, the great majority of them. And bless them for having the courage to say, you know what, your kid's not focusing. Your kid's not reading at the level that I would expect them to. Because it
Yeah.
truly means that they care, you know?
Yeah. Anything that stands out there in particular? Like for me, I mean, my story is so typical. Ours was couldn't sit on the mat, couldn't be quiet, definitely didn't keep his hands to
Mhm.
himself. But what about for the inattentive ADHD
Yeah.
kiddos? What should those parents be
So
looking out
those
for?
are the kids that tend to fly under the radar and get diagnosed later in life because they
Yeah.
aren't hyperactive. They aren't disrupting other people. One of the big red flags that I have when it comes to behavioral problems in kids is if a teacher tells a parent that the child is being defiant. Because to
Mhm.
me, when they say that the child's defiant, it's usually because they're not getting their work done. And that, again, is a big red flag of inattention or actually anxiety. I have a lot of kids that I've diagnosed with anxiety disorders, and the parents have told me, my kid's wonderful, but the teacher's saying they're defiant. Well, they're not. They're just so wound up that they can't focus.
Ooh, I never put two and two together on that, but I am right now.
Yeah.
as the anxious, inattentive kiddo, I can definitely look back and see that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, that is one of the big ones that I talk to parents about. And parents are so, they know their kids and they know their kids aren't defiant, but to be told that hurts. And so helping parents
Yeah.
understand why that happens can be really, really helpful.
Parenting neurodivergent kiddos feels like trying to build IKEA furniture blindfolded sometimes. You know there's a manual, but it's all in Swedish. That's exactly why I want to spotlight Insight Family Market. They aren't another generic store. They're a curated marketplace built by someone who's literally been in the trenches as an educator and parent, selecting tools that actually make daily life more manageable for real families. From sensory-friendly clothing and adaptive tools to educational supports and wellness essentials, everything is chosen with the family-first mindset. No clinical jargon, no guessing what might help. What I love is that it's not about selling you a quick hack. It's about offering thoughtful, quality products that help create more calm, more confidence, and more actual functioning in chaos. Whether that's at mealtime, bedtime, homework, or quiet moments between the noise. If you are exhausted from chasing solutions and just want a place where the gear feels like it was picked by someone who gets it, Insight Family Market might be that stop on your journey. So you mentioned that teachers were angels. I just wanted to tell you this. When COVID happened, my son was pre-K kindergarten. So he went into pre-K and that was fantastic. And then all of a sudden I was his teacher and I was like, how do they do it?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
How do they do it? I have one at home. I can't get him to do anything. And they have 17 in the class. Like, we need to give them all
Oh
a
yeah,
raise.
absolutely. For sure.
So my next question is, how do you get parents to shift their vision of the kid that is in front of them? So parents typically come to you maybe thinking one thing is happening and you have to very gently tell them that it's completely something different. How does that go?
That's where the connection that I have with my patients becomes important, because when you have a longstanding relationship with the family, it's a lot easier to say, there may be an issue here. I remember very early on in my practice, parents were a little bit in denial. The child was 7 at the time, and the parents only brought him in because they wanted to appease the teacher, right? So teacher says he's having behavioral problems. We brought him in to get him checked out. Meanwhile, the 7-year-old is literally acting like a fish on the floor. And it was just kind of a matter of, it's right here. It's right here, and you're not doing anything wrong. That's a big thing too. I think parents assign blame. And even though conditions like ADHD have a genetic component, it doesn't mean that it's the parent's fault. And so I think that plays into it too, and helping parents understand, okay, nobody did anything wrong, but this is what we're dealing with. And he can't be in middle school and acting like a fish on the floor. So we should probably try to address this now. And that particular child is now a grown up doing amazing, thriving. Sometimes it just takes certain parents a little bit longer to come to terms with things.
Yeah. I think that our pediatrician, I love him so much. We're very thankful to have him. He kind of explained it to me like, you're at home with him and you have been with him for years. You're kind of used to him being a fish on the floor. That's normal behavior for you. But if we could just think about like that behavior in the classroom, we might be more open to, okay, yeah, that's probably not quote unquote normal or typical behavior. Yes. And I bet that is really hard.
Yeah, it is. And then too, COVID threw everything off, because everybody was at home with their kids and everybody just is like, well, this is them.
Yeah. For me, I think it probably had the reverse effect to where I was his pre-K teacher and kindergarten teacher, it's like, oh wow, this is what they're dealing with,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
maybe they are right. Maybe he does have some
Mhm.
hyperactive behavior and some
Yeah.
inattention going on because he was running around the house singing while I'm trying to go
Mhm.
over our letters
Yeah.
and
Yep.
things.
Yeah.
So now that you've got us to admit that maybe there's something going on, that we don't have this fantasy kid that we all dreamed
Mhm.
up, what do we do
Yeah.
now? How do we transform what we're
Yes.
doing?
So it's really, again, focusing on the particular child and what they need. I have some kids in my practice that are on the autism spectrum disorder, and they tend to run. They're runners. And one of the first things that I do with parents is I say, you know what? Let's think about a handicap sticker. Because the last thing I want is for you to have to go to the grocery store with your child, be in the very back of the parking lot, and they take off and now they get hit by a car. And so helping parents kind of see the things that maybe they wouldn't have thought of is kind of a big part of what I do.
Yeah. So it's more so on a
Oh
individual
yeah,
basis.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because every kid, I mean, there are a few things specific to ADHD that I recommend to all parents. Whether it's so ADHD is not ADD anymore. Now it's all under the umbrella of ADHD, and then there's subtypes. So regardless of whether a child is ADHD combined type, inattentive type, I always tell families talk to the school and try to get either a 504 or an IEP plan for your child. Make sure they are not excluded for gym class or recess because they haven't completed their work. So there
Yeah.
are a couple kind of universal things that I will tell to all families, but I typically try to take a little bit more tailored approach.
I know that as a medical doctor, you're, well, maybe I'm completely stereotyping, but you are typically these are the symptoms that we have, these are the treatments that we offer. Is there anything outside of the medication realm that you
Yeah,
recommend
I mean,
to ADHD
in a
families?
perfect world, I'd set all my families up with a therapist that specializes in the management of ADHD to help people learn strategies to pay attention longer. I'm blanking on the name, but there is an FDA approved video game to help.
Endeavor.
Yes, that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Yes. So I typically will talk to my families about that. Um, because I mean, we're a very virtual age right now, and a lot of kids are like, "Oh, a video game? Yeah, let me play that." So I think that's a
Yeah.
fantastic tool for families. And then the other thing too is making sure that they're connected to support because it can be very challenging to try to parent a child that physically cannot sit still. And they're not doing it on purpose. They can't help it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not to knock medication. I am a woman of science. I believe in
Yeah.
all of that. But I have met so many parents along this journey that are willing to transform their entire kitchen, but will not go the medication route. So I just wanted to give them some tips in there
Yeah.
as well.
And that's the thing is I'm pro science, but I never make that decision for families. That's just the way I run my practice. If it doesn't matter if your child is doing laps around the principal's office, if you don't want them on medication, I am not going to push for that because
Yeah.
I am not parenting your child, you are parenting your child. So yeah, that
Yeah.
is that is a decision I never make on my own. It is working in conjunction with the family and the particular child.
Yeah. Unfortunately, our genes, we cannot tolerate ADHD
Mhm.
meds, or I would probably have our whole
Yeah.
family on them
Yes.
because we desperately
Sure.
need them.
Yeah.
And we have went kind of the natural route as much as we could go, the therapy, the executive functioning, occupational
Yes.
therapy. I mean, we've done the works and we've seen some great
Yeah.
improvement, but it's not something that you can,
Well, you can't just turn it
push
off,
away. You
you can
cannot.
manage it, but you can't turn it off.
Yeah. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about the book? I've been taking you all over the ADHD roadmap over here.
No, before we get on the topic of the book, I do, when it comes to the diagnosis and management of ADHD, it's really important to have a very kind of focused approach. I never ever just look at a child and say, you have ADHD. And I would hope nobody's physician out there does that either. One of the tools that I use in every kid that has ADHD that I am evaluating are something called Vanderbilt scales. So there are scientifically validated screening tools. Now, they are not diagnostic, they're just a screening tool. But if you're concerned about your child's behavior, make sure that you are taking them to someone who utilizes those types of screening tools. And the same thing when it comes to the diagnosis and management of mental health disorders like anxiety and depression. There are validated
Yeah.
screening tools out there. Nobody should be looking at your child and just saying, yes, this is the diagnosis. So that's
Mhm.
the one thing I want to drive home to parents. The other thing too is schools nowadays have been diagnosing kids with school autism, which is not a thing. It's not a thing. Now, if that diagnosis gets the child service at school, great. But autism spectrum disorder is a medical diagnosis. It needs to be made by medical professionals and ideally a team of developmental experts. So that's my little stance on that. In terms of the book, Parenting Redefined, it is the closest thing to a parenting manual that I could produce. You know, I've been doing medicine a long time, over 15 years, but the same questions always come up year after year after year after year. And so I took the experiences of myself as a mom and the experiences of my patients, and I kind of just tried to spell it all out for families in a way that still allows for an individual approach. One of the parts of the book that I'm really proud about is the sections on something called temperament. So temperament is something that is ingrained in our personalities. It's a group of 9 attributes that are consistent over the lifetime. So for example, one time I had a teenage patient, the mom brought her in because she was concerned she was depressed. And I had her fill out all the screening tools. I asked her how her mood was. I did all my assessment, and this child was clearly not depressed. But what was going on is that her temperament was that of a low mood. Now, it's technically called a negative mood. I don't like that terminology. But so I asked the mom, I said, hey, when she was little, if it was her birthday, did she like people singing happy birthday to her? The mom was like, no, she actually was kind of embarrassed. I said, how did she open up her gifts? Was she like super excited and throwing the paper everywhere? Or did she open it, say thank you, and move on? Well, yeah, it was the second one. Okay, so your child's not depressed. They just have a low mood. And this is just who they are.
Mhm.
So helping parents kind of understand that kid and saying, there's nothing wrong with her. This is just part of who she is. So that's one of the, and then so along with temperament, there's something called goodness of fit, which is, are your temperamental traits complementary with your kids' temperamental traits, or are they not? And working with
Ooh.
that. So another trait of temperament is persistence, which is not as the same as resilience. Resilience is built over time. Persistence is innate. My husband has the highest persistence I have ever seen in my life. He will, if he doesn't know something, he will YouTube it until he figures it out and becomes an expert. My son, on the other hand, has very low persistence. And if he's not good at something, he doesn't like to do it. It took him a really long time to learn how to tie his shoes, ride a bike, all of that kind of stuff, because he didn't want to practice. So understanding that can be a game changer for parents.
Yeah, for sure. To see if you're on the same
Mhm.
page, that is a common theme. Like we're not on the same page. It could be because you have different
Yeah,
temperament.
absolutely. So we are very big sports fans in my family, and we're also very loud people. My daughter is not. My daughter's the opposite. So she will spend an entire football game in her bedroom because we're a little too much for her. And that's okay, so we don't force the interaction. If you don't want to be here for the family time, cool. Hang out in your room where you're more comfortable. Totally fine.
Just thinking about myself very selfishly, if a parent and a child is very far apart on this temperament
Mhm.
scale, how do we remedy
Yeah.
that?
So the first thing to understand is you can't change the temperament. So don't even try. If so, again, one of the exercises that I go through in the book is I help people. You draw an arrow, double-sided arrow, and for each trait of temperament, you kind of figure out where you are on the low to high continuum. And then you do the same thing for your children. And then you can kind of see where there might be challenges. And compatibility of temperament does not mean that your traits are exactly the same, because it can actually be the opposite. If you have a very active group of people, well, maybe you should go on vacations that involve hiking and exploring and doing these things. But if there's somebody in the family that maybe needs a little bit more downtime, make sure to schedule that too. So, kind of just managing the day with the understanding of, again, where people are at.
I just got smacked in the face with the reminder that we need to parent the kid in front of us instead of the one that
Mhm. Yeah.
I call them the fantasy
Yeah.
kid,
Yeah.
the straight A student, the
Mhm.
all-star athlete, this thing that we
Yeah.
create that nobody ever
Yeah.
gets.
Yeah.
But it's that, because when you were talking about the vacation for me, like I have the hyperactive kid, I've said that to you, but after a couple of days of back-to-back vacation things, he needs a
Yeah.
day off. He needs a complete day of rest, or else he is going to be a nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I've had families where their vacations were ruined because they didn't take that stuff into account. So
Yeah.
they're not a family in my medical practice, but someone I know had a set of triplets naturally. And when they saved enough money to go on vacation to Florida, they were trying to cut costs and they booked a flight at 6 a.m. Well,
Mm.
I mean, if your kids are not used to getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, that's a terrible idea. No matter how much money you're trying to save, that's going to set you up for disaster.
Whew. Yeah, I could imagine that
Yeah,
flight.
yeah.
Oh man. So outside of learning our temperament and our kiddos' temperament, any other tips from the book?
Yeah, so I have a strategy that I call duck on a pond to help reduce yelling behaviors. So, little backstory, when my husband and I were dating, we had I went to medical school in Nebraska. We were in Nebraska at the time. And we had some important event to get to out of state, and we had to fly there. Well, there were thunderstorms, and the flight got delayed, and eventually canceled. And so I'm furious and I'm very, very embarrassed about this behavior. But I started getting into an argument with the people that were trying to rebook us. And meanwhile, my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, is just standing back, like watching me, like just watching me. And I finally realized that he's not jumping in to help support me. And I was like, what is the deal? What is going on? He's like, duck on a pond, baby. I'm a duck on a pond. And what he meant was, even though inside you are like, "Arr!" Surface is calm. And
Mm.
so, duck on a pond is my phrase. When I feel myself starting to get like, I'm going to scream at my kids, it, I take a couple deep breaths. I picture a duck on a pond. I like
Yeah.
and it's a reset. Now this is a skill that takes practice, and duck on a pond may not be the visualization for everyone. My sister-in-law actually uses puppies playing in a park.
Yeah.
So trying to develop that like pattern interrupter where before you lose it, you can like, okay, I need a minute. And so the book walks through how to develop that type of strategy, super effective at reducing yelling behaviors.
Oh, girl, that's why I was in parent coaching for longer than the other parents, because I think it is my natural temperament to be on
Yeah.
guard. So I've got this tiny human that they told me would do what I asked to do, and he's completely not doing it. And then I would completely lose my cool.
Mhm.
And that's why I said that most of my parenting has been
Yeah.
re-parenting myself, like
Yeah.
calm down, like learning those initial chest on fire, getting
Yeah.
ready to explode, just
Yeah.
calm down. I've actually got to the point where I can tell my kid, mean mommy is about to come out. Nobody likes her. Let's
Yeah,
regroup.
absolutely. And a lot of the way I was raised, emotions weren't important, right? Like you were supposed to be fine or good, and nobody really, paid attention to emotions. I think we've come a long way as a society, and we're recognizing the importance of understanding and managing emotions.
Yeah.
Um, but if someone is struggling with the fact that I don't know when I'm going to fly off the handle, I just do. What I encourage them to do, put on an action movie. And right when there's an intense scene, pause it. What is going on inside your body? Is your heart racing? Are your hands sweaty? Are you breathing more shallow? And kind of understanding the physical responses you have can kind of help you understand, I'm about to lose it.
Ooh, girl, that is really good advice because that takes
It
time. That
does.
takes a lot of
Yes.
self-awareness before you're like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
about to turn into
Yeah.
Hulk. I need to,
It's
yeah.
huge and it takes a ton of practice. And the other thing too is as a parent, you're going to make a million mistakes. I make mistakes every day when it comes to parenting my kids. And if you do lose your cool, don't beat yourself up for it,
Yeah.
you know?
One of the things that really, really helped me with that was instead of viewing it as a mess up, viewing it as a time to repair and to teach my kid what it means to lose your cool and then what we do after, which is apologize and hopefully act better next time.
Yes. And
That was
yeah,
really
that
helpful.
actually is, there's a chapter in the book about the importance of making mistakes and making mistakes in front of our kids so they can learn the art of apologizing and making amends.
Mm, that is so good. I was going to wait to ask you this off of recording, but I think our parents, listeners might want to know. Girl, tell me what is school autism?
So, at least in the community where I practice medicine, I have parents coming in saying, my child's school diagnosed them with school autism. Okay, for one, school autism is not a thing, but it's the school's way of saying, we think your child has some behavioral concerns and we want to be able to provide them services, but we can't provide those services without a label.
Ah.
Yes,
So basically, if the school sends home this school autism diagnosis, they would come to you for further medical
correct.
assessment instead of just running with that school
Oh, that's the hope.
diagnosis.
Some people
Yeah.
just say, okay, this is what it is. You know, some people are just they trust that, the system. And if the system says that this is what my kid has, well, I guess this is what my kid has. And that's
Mhm.
totally fine. Again, if the label provides services, I am fine with that. However, autism spectrum disorder is a medical diagnosis. And it's not even something that I am comfortable diagnosing. I mean, I've been doing this a very long
Yeah,
time. I truly believe the appropriate diagnosis is a team of specialists.
got you. I could not rest until I knew more about that. So I had to ask, and I
Yeah,
was going to save it until after the
yeah,
recording. And then I thought, nope, what if another parent is out
yeah,
there like, girl, what is
right.
that? So
Yeah,
I had to get that
yeah.
in there.
And that is a term that really I have only heard over the past few years. It's not something that was a thing when I first started practicing medicine.
I blame almost everything on TikTok because, but it's true. Like, and it's amazing. It opens your eyes to so many things. But now there's kids that are like, TikTok says I have ADHD. And I'm like, what? TikTok can't say you have
Yeah,
ADHD. A doctor needs
yeah,
to say that you have
yeah,
ADHD.
yes. Yeah, and the other thing
So yeah.
too that I don't think people realize is for the neurodevelopmental and mental health disorders, there are strict criteria that you have to meet to qualify for that diagnosis. So, the gold standard is something called the DSM-5, which lays out all of that criteria. But
Yeah.
yeah, I have teenagers all the time. I took this quiz online and I'm bipolar. Okay, hold on. Let's talk about what concerns you have about your behavior or your moods rather than jumping to that.
I blame TikTok. I can't help it.
Oh,
I better be quiet before they deactivate the podcast TikTok account because Dr. Cook, this has been amazing. I would talk to you selfishly all day, but I'm sure you have much more important things to do than to chat with me. Would you mind telling everyone how they can connect with you further and definitely get their hands on the book?
So the book is available on Amazon. It is not in physical bookstores, but if you just type in Parenting Redefined, it's one of the first things that pops up. My website is www.KristenCookMD.com. So that's a great place to kind of find me. I haven't been on TikTok in a while, I'll be honest, but there was a point in my life that I was making a lot of videos. And so my handles on Instagram and TikTok are mom.talk_KCMD. So mom, doc, like doctor, talk, like, because I talk a lot, underscore KCMD. So yeah, I love it.
I will link all of those in the show notes.
Great. Thank you. And I love it. Feel free to reach out with questions. There is not a single question that is stupid when it comes to raising kids.
I believe that. I wholeheartedly believe that. I have a cousin who's expecting their first baby, and they're all young, anxious, and nervous. And I'm like, you're going to figure it out. You're going to figure it out. Read the books, but just know that sometimes the books lead you in a different direction, such as in my case.
Yeah.
Dr. Cook, any parting advice for ADHD parents that may need to hear that today?
You're not doing anything wrong.
That was perfect.
I think a lot of parents need to hear that. I think a lot of parents need to hear you're doing a lot better than you think you are. You're not doing anything wrong. You're doing a lot better than you think you are.
Agreed. And as usual, I did need to hear that today.
Well,
thank you so much for your time today. This has been wonderful.
This has been wonderful. Thank you very much.
That right there, my friends, is the shift. Parenting the child you have isn't about lowering the bar. It's about moving the bar to where your child can actually clear it, and then helping them build the strength to go higher. Huge thanks to Dr. Cook for reminding us that behavior is communication, that biology matters, and that compassion is not weakness, it's strategy. If this episode hit you in the chest a little, if you saw your kid in the conversation, check out Dr. Cook's work in the show notes. And while you're there, please do all the things for the algorithm gods. Like, subscribe, leave me a comment. I love those things. Review us, 5 stars obviously. But so much more important, I need you to send this to another parent who needs permission to stop fighting their child's wiring and start understanding it. And as always, you are not failing, you are learning, and that counts. That's it for this week on Chaos and Caffeine. I'm Danielle, and I'll see you back next week with probably the same amount of chaos. Hopefully, for the love of God, more caffeine, but a little bit more clarity. Can we be honest for a second? If the words school stress make your eye twitch, same. Because traditional school plus ADHD plus already fried nervous systems, phew, that's chaos we did not sign up for. That's why I love Me Academy. It's an online learning platform that lets kids learn at their own pace. No rushing, fewer power struggles, and way fewer homework meltdowns. Yes, please. As a mom, I love that it offers structure without rigidity and learning without wrecking our relationship with our kids. They can rewind lessons, pause when their brain taps out, and actually understand the material. If your 2026 goal is less chaos and more peace, this one actually delivers. Check out meacademy.co to learn more and start your trial for just $1.99. Me Academy isn't about perfect school. It's about school that works for real life.